Pleasant good evening to everyone listening to this evening's edition of Leadership Matters, which is hosted by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. It's a program that he uses to inform the residents, citizens, and nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis, both at home and abroad, updated on things that are happening in the country and the things that the Team Unity administration have been doing to develop the country for everyone. This evening, the Prime Minister is joined by the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws, and Superintendent Cromwell Henry from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. We're going to begin with the opening presentation from the Prime Minister, and he will be followed by Dr. Laws and Superintendent Henry. So shall we begin with the Prime Minister? Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Jackie. My fellow citizens and residents, I thank you for tuning in to another edition of Leadership Matters. Tonight we focus on our ongoing efforts to keep our citizens and residents safe in the face of a deadly coronavirus disease that continues to threaten lives and livelihoods across the world. We cannot ignore it, and unfortunately, we will have to live with it for a while longer. We must, however, protect ourselves, our loved ones, our jobs, and our country. Our most powerful protection comes through vaccination. As we speak tonight, COVID-19 has caused a 4-week postponement of the planned reopening of the economy in the United Kingdom. It has traumatized Italy and set back our strong ally Taiwan. We are learning from all these experiences and those from our region never to become complacent. COVID-19 does not play by rules. The coronavirus is an invisible enemy, and we must never think that it is gone. It has been lying low, waiting for a prey to infect, to hurt, and regrettably kill. We are its prey, and we must protect ourselves by getting vaccinated. I repeat, vaccination is our most powerful tool. None of us is safe until we are all safe. At this time of global crisis, when a veritable war is being fought against COVID-19, we have to be united and cohesive. We cannot think only for today. We must be prepared to make short-term sacrifices for a stronger and safer future. We cannot think of ourselves only, but also of others. The sage advice of Father Dwayne Cassius, imploring us last Saturday at the NEOC briefing to work as one unit, one family, one country, and one people, must inspire us to work together to fight this pandemic. He quoted from Philippians chapter 2, verses 3-4, which reads, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than yourselves. Let each of you look not to your own interests, but to the interests of others." We are truly in it together, and together we must overcome the challenges of this pandemic. COVID-19 will find persons who are vulnerable, the elderly, for example, the young, and the majority of unvaccinated persons to infect with its disease. Do not wait. Vaccinate. Everyone whose second shot is due should go and get it soonest. Our 17 health centers are opened to protect you. COVID-19, when it comes, will not only affect you, but your family. We have had cases where families of 6+ members all tested positive for the virus. I am concerned for every family affected on the island of Nevis and on St. Kitts. We must not wait until we get infected to recognize that COVID-19 is not a respecter of persons. I must express regret that Nevis has now recorded its first case in many months. I wish the person a successful recovery. We encourage the family and community to support the individual. My advice to those not yet vaccinated is to do so tomorrow. We are all in this together. There is no them and us. I repeat, until all are vaccinated, we have to exercise caution and common sense. We are in this together, and that is why I focus on the Federation as a whole. The unvaccinated who are highly vulnerable to the virus, and the vaccinated whose lives are put on temporary halt, are all part of our beloved country. So we must continue to encourage vaccination as we work to take our Federation beyond herd immunity. Every right-thinking and patriotic person should be encouraging persons to get vaccinated. In my view, this is a national imperative. In this challenging fight to contain and defeat COVID-19, we have some good news. A significant number of our citizens and residents are now vaccinated. Just over 66% of those adults who should be vaccinated are vaccinated. And in this regard, we have one of the best vaccination rates among the independent countries in our currency union. I congratulate all of our citizens and residents who have already taken their first dose of the vaccine. We now need for those who have not taken their second dose to do so as soon as possible, and indeed before vaccines run out. As more persons become vaccinated, each of us receive a greater protection as fewer persons are there to transmit the virus. I encourage all who have had the first dose of the vaccine to show up soon for your second dose. This will help the country to move on. This will allow for more businesses to open safely, creating income for thousands of persons, and help us to secure the much anticipated stronger and safer future. The good news is that we have one of the highest testing rates per capita in the region. This means we stand a better chance of finding persons infected, quarantining and isolating them where necessary before they infect others with the deadly virus, while simultaneously giving them the care and support which they need and deserve. The good news is that we have one of the best contact tracing systems in place, which will help us to receive maximum benefit from our testing efforts. The good news is that we have vaccines now, and persons yet to have their second dose should go soonest to do so. The good news is that we have a very low hospitalization rate, and we want to keep it that way. By getting vaccinated, we keep it this way, and we avoid our health system becoming overwhelmed with cases or deaths. The most wonderful news is that God has been good to us, and as a result, we have had no deaths so far. We thank Him, and we continue to ask for His protective cover over all of us. The good news is that we practice a real all-of-society approach in St. Kitts and Nevis, where every entity is welcome to do something, not simply criticize and be destructive. There can be no neutrality when the virus is attacking us regardless of color, politics, age, residence, location, or occupation. No time is there for bitterness and bitter politics. We must do what we have to do to protect lives. On this note, I wish to thank all the hard-working medical professionals and the frontline workers who have been toiling to keep us all safe. Moreover, I wish to condemn any personal attacks that have been leveled against our professionals. This must stop. I have outlined on several occasions that any party interested in providing constructive support in this fight against the COVID-19 pandemic is encouraged and invited to do so through the COVID-19 task force. We have created this structure to ensure that we approach this fight in the most effective and efficient way. Please support our hard-working professionals. To those who have provided support, I say thank you. To our churches, our religious leaders, and other supportive individuals across the length and breadth of St. Kitts and Nevis, I ask you to continue to pray for our beloved country. Thank you for your continued support in all our endeavors. I am encouraged that at the end of the current 14 days of partial lockdown or enhanced restrictions, that new policies will be implemented to ensure we are in a better position to live with COVID-19. We will have new quarantine measures and maybe even perhaps a shorter quarantine period. We will have more benefits for the vaccinated. We will have more businesses opening. But in order to get there, I repeat, in order to get there, we need more persons vaccinated. These 14 days are therefore critical. We are focusing on protecting the health of our people. We need a healthy population. Indeed, the health of our small nation is truly the wealth of our nation. Speaking about professionals, I commend Dr. Hazel Laws for her service at this time of national emergency. She is committed, like Dr. Wilkinson and all others in the health system, trying to see us through this pandemic. She has been an excellent choice as our Chief Medical Officer. I have been very satisfied by her excellent work, integrity, and patriotism. I have been impressed by Superintendent Henry's work at the NEOC, and I continue to wish him very well. He's a real patriot, and he's dedicated to duty. Should more persons become vaccinated in the next week, we will come further out of the shadow of COVID-19, with more persons back to work in a safer environment, earning incomes and putting bread on the table of their loved ones. For visitors and locals alike who are fully vaccinated, we will reduce the quarantine requirements as the environment will be safe. This will allow fully vaccinated individuals to access more opportunities and to enjoy life in as near normal a setting as they did before COVID-19. Our children can return to their schools and other centers of learning and not be exposed to COVID-19 because all adults, almost all of us, are fully vaccinated. We must get vaccinated for our precious children who we want to see grow into adulthood. Let us commit then to keep our children safe. We will be better placed to more effectively and safely restart tourism, receiving more guests for our hotels, and welcoming cruise visitors in bubble arrangements. This will result in more jobs, which will deliver more money in the pockets of employees and more profitable businesses, taxi operations, restaurants, etc. Indeed, a win-win for all of us, each endeavoring and each achieving. Vaccination then is critical to our health and our safer and stronger future. I must thank the public for abiding by the new restrictions, and I advise them please to keep off the street unless they are going to get vaccinated or to do essential business. At this time, no one should be careless. I encourage all leaders, be they doctors, lawyers, businessmen, nurses, politicians, preachers, police officers, firemen, you name them, to send a clear message that vaccination is the best fighting tool against this deadly virus. Those who tell you not to take the vaccine, they do not have your best interests at heart, nor that of this country. They will abandon you when you get sick. Avoid those who are trying to score political points by not supporting this necessary vaccination program. They do not have your best interests at heart. It is indeed sad that they are misleading their supporters with false news and untruths, causing them to fall victim to the virus. At this time of crisis, there is no need, I repeat, no need for partisan politics. We will have ample time in the next 4 years for that. For now, we must protect the people and our beloved country by getting everyone vaccinated. I urge all on the front line, the police, the firemen, the prison officers, those working in our defense force at NEMA, our civil servants, etc., who have not done so, to go and get vaccinated soonest. It is a moral duty for those at the front line to protect themselves so that they can safely and truly protect others. I am convinced that only responsible action at the individual level will take us out of the shadow of COVID-19. Let's not wait. Please vaccinate now. It is the responsible thing to do for you, your loved ones, and your country. Before I end, I want again to formally welcome the panelists here tonight with me, our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Hazel Laws, and Superintendent Cromwell Henry. I thank them for being here, and I do hope that you'll find this edition of Leadership Matters to be very informative and helpful to you. Thank you again for tuning in, and may God continue to protect you and keep the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. We're now going to hear from the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws. Dr. Laws?
Thank you, Jackie, and a pleasant good evening to everyone. It is almost 1 month since we identified the first case in this current wave of COVID-19 infections. The Ministry of Health and the National Task Force are working assiduously to contain this outbreak. Today, Tuesday, June 15th, we received positive results for 18 cases, and yesterday, Monday, June 14th, we received positive results for 17 cases. Let me just recap. This past weekend, let me be more specific. On Saturday, we added 13 positive cases, and last Sunday, we added 9 cases. So in essence, the total number of COVID-19 confirmed cases equal 244. 244. 64 cases have fully recovered, and a team of case managers and physicians are monitoring the 180 active cases. The Federation has added 199 cases to its COVID-19 tally in 4 weeks, and that is between May 19th to present, with 198 cases added in St. Kitts and 1 case added in Nevis. We have had 13 COVID-19 related hospital admissions within this time period. 7 cases have since been discharged and 6 cases remain in hospital. The hospitalized cases include 2 children, and the adults can be characterized as having or as being overweight or obese, and they have underlying comorbidities, including diabetes, asthma, and hypertension. The COVID-19 virus appears to be impacting the unvaccinated and those who have become complacent regarding the COVID-19 prevention and control measures. We have implemented 4 public health interventions to help contain this outbreak and get us out of this crisis. These 4 public health interventions include: 1. Contact tracing. We have a team of trained contact tracing personnel who engage all the cases, compile lists of significant contacts who are then interviewed, placed in self-quarantine for 14 days, and tested. The team reached 1,887 contacts already. The team has officially released 1,238 individuals to date, and there are 649 persons remaining in self-quarantine. Most of the recent cases have been identified through the contact tracing process. A small percentage of these cases are persons who walked into the emergency room. However, we are still able to link most of these individuals to previously identified cases. Ladies and gentlemen, the contact tracing process is robust and it has been successful thus far. The second public health intervention is testing. COVID-19 testing is a part of our response. There are now 2 mobile testing units that traverse the island daily, collecting samples from contacts, and there are 2 sample collection sites at the JNF General Hospital. We are also conducting targeted testing. In 4 weeks, we have tested over 5,395 persons, with 199 positive results returning, with a positivity rate of approximately 3.7%. In essence, we have tested 11.4% of the entire population in just under 4 weeks. I must update you. Last week, the Ministry of Health sent off samples to the Caribbean Public Health Agency for genomic sequencing. From this information, we will find out the variant of the SARS-CoV virus that is presently in circulation. The third public health intervention refers to our COVID-19 vaccination drive. Our vaccination drive started in February, and within 4 months, we have achieved the following coverage rate. 66.3% of the target population is covered with the first dose, and 31% of the target population is covered with the second dose or fully vaccinated. Please note that breastfeeding or lactating women can take or accept the COVID-19 vaccine. The AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine is safe in women who are breastfeeding. As of today, 21.7% of the total population is fully vaccinated. And when compared to the other islands in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, we are doing very well. The fourth public health intervention refers to restriction of movement. This public health measure was implemented this past weekend based on where we are along the epidemic curve and based on the rising positivity rate. The principle behind this public health intervention is to reduce social interaction and ultimately break the chains of transmission of the COVID-19 virus. However, its effectiveness still depends on adherence to the non-pharmaceutical measures during the partial lockdown. Ladies and gentlemen, these 4 public health interventions are working. Just this morning, we had a meeting with a team of experts at the Pan American Health Organization. We had to provide them with a status update, and we discussed the measures we have employed. Dr. Gerber, the PAHO WHO representative, expressed confidence in the technical team here in the Ministry of Health, and he underscored that we are on the right path in the response to this outbreak. We are in a war, and we each have a part to play. So if you are at present virus-free, I implore you to do all you can to prevent exposure to the virus. If you are COVID-19 positive, I implore you to do all you can to prevent the spread of the virus. And if you have taken the first dose of the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, I implore you to return for your second dose. And if you have not yet accepted the vaccine, I implore you to come on board and accept same. Let us work together to maintain and protect the health and well-being of the people of the Federation. I want to end on a personal note. On September the 15th, 2016, I joined the staff in the Ministry of Health in my present capacity as the Chief Medical Officer. I function as the Chief Technical Advisor to the government on matters related to health. I provide technical support and leadership to the health team. I have been functioning in this capacity for almost 5 years. I serve passionately. I am committed to my service. I want us to dismiss the fake news and misinformation that is in circulation. I'm on the job, I'm working, and it's quite obvious that I haven't resigned. Let us not be distracted. Let us move forward in our fight against this virus. I thank you.
And I thank you, Dr. Laws. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We're now going to hear from Superintendent Cromwell Henry from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Superintendent Henry.
Thank you, Jackie, and a pleasant good evening to all viewing or listening to this broadcast. As usual, it is always my pleasure to speak to you, the public, regarding matters of security and law enforcement, and to seek your cooperation, as this is the best way that we can move forward together. This evening I will be speaking to you on the important topic of COVID-19 and issues surrounding it, specifically from a law enforcement or security standpoint. We want to assure you, the public, that the security forces stand ready to discharge its responsibility for public safety in support of the Ministry of Health. However, we cannot do this alone. As we always say, we need full cooperation of the public and public's assistance in our efforts. One of the ways the public can help to slow the spread of the virus is through vaccination. I'm pleased to inform you that currently 72% of police officers has been vaccinated. If you cannot be vaccinated for whatever reason, you can still play your part by simply adhering to all the non-pharmaceutical measures such as wearing of masks in public, sanitization and good hand hygiene practices, maintaining a physical distance of 6 feet from others around you who are not part of your immediate household, and more importantly, follow any new measures that are implemented. For example, recently, new regulations have been published which require citizens who are not required for essential work to remain at their residence between the hours of 6 p.m. and 5 a.m. daily. And during the period 5 a.m. to 6 p.m., only movement for essential purposes is permitted. Other measures that is currently temporarily in place to slow the spread of the virus is the cessation of street vending. Vendors, however, still have an avenue whereby they can sell their goods safely at the public market, where there is more safety controls in place to protect both you and those who are patronizing your business. Businesses are encouraged to have their employees work remotely utilizing virtual means, and where this is not possible, such businesses are required to be closed. Again, this is another measure to prevent the spread of the virus. Exceptions are, however, provided for certain categories of businesses, such as supermarkets, bakeries, pharmacies, medical facilities, banks, gas stations, and any other business that the Commissioner of Police may permit in writing. Other new measures to control and prevent the spread of the virus will be implemented from time to time, and we ask for the usual cooperation of the public and adherence to these public health measures. I will end my opening presentation here at this point and look forward to the discussion later, where we can address more specifically your concerns as you may call in to ask. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Superintendent Henry. And I'm certain that persons are eager to call in. We've had a number of things happening over the past few days. We've had a number of updates on the program here this evening. And I know that there are persons who have questions that need to be answered. So if you'd like to participate in the program this evening, there are quite a bit of numbers that you can dial. They are 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and the international line is 1-239-645-4500. Those numbers are listed at the bottom of your screen for your convenience. What's not listed on your screen are the numbers if you want to send a WhatsApp message or a voice note, and we will try our best to address as many as possible. The WhatsApp numbers are 661-5683. That number again is 661-5683. The second number is 660-7168. That's 660-7168. And those are the WhatsApp numbers. When calling in, you are advised to stay on the line until you hear someone speaking with you. That person probably will be me. And once you hear my voice, you are to speak with me over the phone. So don't listen to your radio or computer once the telephone is answered. And we are going to try and take as many calls as possible. And I'm asking all our callers to be as brief as possible so that we can take as many calls as possible, because we know that there are lots of questions and concerns that people have, and we want to address as many as possible. At this point, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll go straight to the phone lines.
It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be safe. One kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up, yeah. 'Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. 'Cause I love you. Brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to let it roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
Welcome back to Leadership Matters, a program which is hosted by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. This evening, his special guests are the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws, and Superintendent Cromwell Henry from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Both serve on the National COVID-19 Task Force, and they are joining him tonight to answer questions that you might have. And we are speaking about how we can work together to contain the spread of the COVID-19 virus here in the Federation. We're going to open the phone lines now. My name is Jacqueline Bryan. I'm your host this evening. But I just wanted to let you know that this program is being aired live on ZIZ Radio, Freedom FM, Vaughan Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM. It is also streamed on the Facebook pages and YouTube channels of ZIZ Broadcasting and the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, also known as SKNIS. The program is made available on Spotify as well as Apple and Google Podcasts. The aim is to reach you where you are and make it available even if you miss the live showing. So we're going to go straight to the phone lines now. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good night. Leadership really matters.
Good
Ms.
evening.
Brian, Jackie, I want to say I admire your backdrop. It's very nice, very, very appealing and very professional. I love the standard you're setting, so kudos to that. Let's move right along because it's going to be a busy night. Let's start off with Dr. Laws. Dr. Laws, it's so good to see you because with that article circulating, I was wondering if I'm seeing a ghost tonight. So I'm happy that you have just the fake news that you have not resigned. It just recently you get the Star of Merit, I think. And I'm happy that you are standing by our Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris. And I'm happy that you're still part of this team, making sure that we are safe in thinking. So let me stay on Dr. Laws. We are making a sacrifice now for the future. What do you see happening at the end of these 14 days in terms of COVID-19 in the Federation and our ability to move around? Can we expect another stimulus package coming from Social Security? More questions coming. Now, Mr. Cromwell spoke about the market. Now, how has the relocation of the vendors in the public market going? How will Officer Henry, who's doing a good job, how will she evaluate the persons, how will she evaluate the response of persons to these new measures? Which areas need improvement? Are more people abiding by the new protocols set forth for the public market? Now, let's get into a little something quickly. Now, persons are saying that they are a bit uncomfortable, and maybe my Prime Minister, our Prime Minister, can look at this suggestion where the hardware can be open maybe half day, or maybe twice a week, or once per week. But persons who are doing construction need materials. We are home for 14 days in the first instance, and this is the time that we can take advantage and prepare for the hurricane season. Remember, we are in hurricane season. So the hardware, Mr. PM, pleased to take a look at it and see how they can open to serve the public just on a short-term basis. The Port Authority, I was made to understand that only wholesale persons are allowed to get their cargoes from the port. If this is true, when can we get some access for persons who have barrels coming in with foodstuff? Bearing in mind that some don't have any money to go to the supermarket to shop and would need that foodstuff from the port so that they can continue to feed themselves during this COVID-19. Thank you very much for your time. And Prime Minister, last week was your turn. They say you was in Koi Hotel, hiding out, recovering. Now this week is Dr. Lars. I don't know who's going to be next week. It might be Jackie. But you guys keep up the good work, Prime Minister. I'm still going to tell you thanks for not putting us on lockdown. We still can move, which is good. So at least we're not stifled and can't do nothing. We can move, and I want you to continue to keep me safe because I am safe. And I'm in your hand. I know you have others in your hand, and you're going to continue to protect and thank you for me. Have a good night. I'll continue listening. Leadership Matters, and this is Buck Garrett.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
This is Adriana. I wanted to know the rationale for not allowing MoneyGram and Western Union to open, even if part-time. Because during this time when many persons have to depend on relatives abroad, they send their funds mainly through these two institutions and not through the bigger banks. So I hope that the government will look at this matter, because I had an incident myself where I needed funds from abroad to help with a medical issue, and I couldn't get it. So I would like them to have another look, a second look at, even if it's part-time, it can be considered.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Good evening, Ms. Bryant.
Good evening, sir.
I hope your night is going well.
As well as it can be. Thank you so much. Okay. I hope yours is going well.
I will find out later when I get answers to my concerns. Okay. Mr. PM, this is another Tuesday night date. Welcome back to Leadership Matters. And good night to the CMO and Superintendent Henry. Quickie, the COVID-19 pandemic, worldwide effect. What effect, Mr. PM, is this having on our citizenship by investment program? One. The next one, we've seen in some of the countries that have been offering incentives to entice non-vaxxers and those having doubts about the vaccine to go and take the vaccine. Do you think that it would be a worthwhile exercise to do the same thing here? And I do have an idea as to what I think could work for some persons. But can we consider some incentive to get ourselves over that hump, over that 70 or 75% mark? Because as we get closer there, we will have some slowing down in the taking of the vaccines. And last but not least, as the end of June comes around, we run into a situation of expiry of the current stock of vaccines, and we're also running out of vaccines, I believe. What progress are we making in finding another source of a supply of vaccines to keep us going? Thank you, and I'll listen out for the answers.
Thank you so much, sir. We made a note of your questions, and we'll take another call at this time. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Yeah, hello, good night.
Hi.
This question is to Cromwell, Henry. Based on what you're saying with the market, we know that you're saying no vendoring, right, and the public sheet. But how many people you allow into the market? Because the market is an indoor location where it's more dangerous as an indoor area. It's not like how you have, the street vendors is more open up. people is more closer in the market. So how many people you allowed to be in the market at this present time? Because we know that based on Saturday time, you have people who normally go at the market to vend, to sell in there. But now you have different people who is in there now. What will be the position from you taking? The other question is to the Prime Minister. You have, Mr. PM, you have on the other side, our sister island, Mark Barney make a presentation the other night when he's telling the people of Nevis that he's not going to lock down Nevis. But I think it's you're saying you're going to lock down. What is the situation where that in Nevis you don't have a lockdown to say that you have, because they're not going on to work, and you don't have no vendors, is selling, So in Nevis, Mark is saying that the vendors can sell and everybody can make a daily bread, but in St. Kitts it's totally different. Do you have a different organization where that you say one thing, but Mark says something else different? What is the relationship between that area there? The last but not least, to the CMO, this question is, what happened to people who have the 2 doses of vaccine? Do they catch COVID still? How many people in St. Kitts who have COVID who take the 2 doses? I will listen after. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution, caller. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Hi, good night, Jacqueline.
Hi, good evening.
And good night to the Prime Minister and the panelists. My question is that from the instant the vaccine came into St. Kitts, the government was saying that you take your 2 doses, you're free to do whatever. It's free to the country. You can wear no mask, you can go whatever you want, you can interact with people who are fully vaccinated. My question is why it is that now that 65% of the population have the first dose, 30-something of the percentage have the second dose. Why it is that we still have to go through this lockdown and this social distancing and the wearing a mask, and yet still we can't have a job. I am a bus operator. I have my 2 doses. A lot of bus operators don't have any vaccine at all, which they don't want to take any because I've been advocating for them to take the vaccine and they don't want to. But yet still you have on the east side, buses picking up passengers anywhere as they like. Up to this afternoon, an island constable stop a bus outside the east terminal. When you have 6 buses inside the east terminal, island constable stop a bus outside of the east terminal and jump in without a mask. That's an island constable. That's supposed to be protecting us. And catch a bus from outside the terminal without a mask. The bus already had 9 persons. She and the next lady jump into the bus. I would like to know what is the government doing in terms of punishing the people and that they asked him to have the vaccine, that the vaccine is going to protect the country. If we are in the country and can't be protected by the normal jobs, which we are depending on, this is our livelihood, and we are getting punished, how are you going to encourage other people to take the vaccine who are not a favor of taking the vaccine? My question for that part. The other question is, why are the hardware stores cannot be open? The construction workers not supposed to be working. But up to today, in front of the Skelec, I saw people doing construction work. And most of them are not Kittitian. Why it is that Kittitian have to punish to solve what problem? Please, Prime Minister, let us know what's really going on in the country. I just saw a post from the Labour Party, SKN St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, that it's more than 500 cases, and the government is not saying anything. Please to clarify that for us, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll take a few more calls. We have a few more calls on the line, and we'll take those. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Yes. Good night. Good night to the general public, the viewing, the listening, them in space. Good night to the Prime Minister, Honorable Timothy Harris, Dr. Lars, Sir Cromwell Henry. This is Granny. Good night. Prime Minister, before I commend everybody on this board for a wonderful job they do it. I remember a while back, right? I think maybe about 2 months back or something. So you say if the general population take the vaccine. We might got music festival, but you ain't say who coming this week. But furthermore, Dr. Laws, I messaged you the other night, right? And first of all, let me commend you all. Y'all are doing a wonderful and great job. I don't listen to fake news, right? Fake news, no, I don't deal with them there. I analyze things first before, I could deal with what I got to deal with. A question I have to ask you. You said in your opening remarks that one day you'll have 17 cases and then the other day was 18 cases. Are those cases people you tell okay, for instance, you was living with Granny got corona, go home. Are those people in isolation that are the numbers them that you're coming out with? Are people just being sick and entering into the hospital and doing what they have to do? I messaged y'all the other night, right? And I think this is a very, very good thing. And I need y'all to take this into consideration. Because in certain y'all, briefing and so y'all saying that y'all do not know which are these people get the coronaviruses. And I think it's people in isolation is who coming out and farming full with people life. I think y'all need to put bans on people's hands, not to say that they have corona, because they might not have corona, but to say that they're supposed to be inside, and if they come out outside and they catch them, you charge them a fine. Because I don't think people in isolation, y'all supposed to be mixing with the general public. Prime Minister, let me come back to you now. Me talk about music festival. I want to commend you on a very job that you all are doing with y'all team, right? Up to the other, they're telling me friends them, these are the hardest years, 2020, 2021, 2022, even though if any countries in the world have to wait 2023 with corona still hanging over the head. Just join the reference, I think Canada going to take a whole year lockdown. Just now, right? These are leaders. Once they bring this country out of the pandemic, what they are going to, these are leaders to respect. And people out there who spreading the fake news and then kind of thing, I start live for people, live for yourself. I might got children, I might got elderly people in our home or something, so I go vaccinate. Oh, come on, Henry, let me come down to you now. If like the bus drivers them like me who fully vaccinate, when we uncle carry with 14 people, me worry about who ain't take the one and worry about me. But anyway, I just want to commend y'all again. I take care. I is a very nice group of people who fighting this coronavirus, and I telling I play out, I about. I like to give people jacket when I deserve a jacket. Come on, remember I was still trying to call you. I enjoy Iris night.
Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Good night.
Hi, thank you for your patience. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Good night, everybody. Miss Bryan, you look so glowing.
Thank you.
Our wonderful Prime Minister. To Dr. Laws, how you will know who all take the vaccine and don't take, especially in a supermarket, because everybody would not shop 6 feet. Good job. Good night.
Right, good night. Do we have any additional calls?
Hello?
We'll
Hello?
take this final call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Hello?
Hi, good evening.
Yes, good evening to you and the Prime Minister, Miss Laws and Mr. Henry. A question, maybe suggestion. When you have carnival, right? You have the carnival committee would go around the country in a thing that they would call a bar crawl, right? And when you have elections, the politicians would go around with whistle stops, or they would go out to meet people. I am asking and maybe suggesting also, can the task force do something like that? Maybe a vaccination drive where you go around the country. If the vaccine could be transported in that way, maybe you also go with the vaccine. Probably don't go with the politicians because, you know, you don't want it to look like you're doing some kind of political thing. Maybe you use the nurses, teachers, and probably some of the police. And you go around and you stop in areas, you know, maybe you put it on the radio station first. So maybe like saying, okay, this Saturday coming up, we're going to have a vaccination drive where, you know, we're going to be going around the country in like a whistle-stop form or a motorcade kind of form. And as you go out, people, you know, you stop, you have nurses explaining to people about the vaccine and, you know, being vaccinated and stuff like that. And you stop people, you know, people probably who want to do it, if you would have maybe the 10 or more persons want to do it, you do it right there. Because I believe sometimes people, you're saying that the vaccine, you can go by the community centers or the health centers and do it, right? There isn't a health center in every village. And there might be where the closest community health center might be a distance away. People who are not working might have this kind of notion that, I ain't gonna take up $2.50 or $3 to go by a health center to get a vaccination. So, and then there might be also some people who might have a problem filling out the forms. So that could be a deterrent too to people because, you know, if I have a problem filling the form, I don't want to go to a health center, you know, where I might have to go in front of people and stumble to be filling out a form. So maybe if you do like a vaccination drive, and then you have some teachers or nurses, and you have, you know, and then you ask the persons the questions and they fill in the information. Maybe I think that might be better help, you know, in terms of picking up the amount of people who would take the vaccination. So I believe that you all could probably give that some thought and probably look at it that way. If the vaccine could be transported in that form in order to do something like that. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your contribution to the program. At this stage, we're going to address some of the callers' questions and concerns. And once time permits, we'll go back to the phone lines. And we'll begin with the question of what do you see happening, Dr. Laws, at the end of the 14 days?
Okay. The partial lockdown is a public health intervention, a measure, as I explained, and we are hopeful that by the end of this 2-week period, we would see a drastic decrease in the number of positive cases. We would, as it were, flatten the curve. So that's the whole aim, to keep a cap on the total number of persons who are impacted by this virus. And so that's what we really hope to achieve at the end of this partial lockdown period.
Mr. Prime Minister, we have a question asking if another stimulus package is on its way.
Good question, and the question will answer in due course. The government's financial team constantly reviews the health of the country and make determinations, and I've had the financial secretary leading that team, and at the appropriate time, we will be able to address that matter.
We have a question asking, how is the relocation of vendors at the public market going with regards to new regulations, and if persons are complying?
Well, first of all, the relocation of the vendors is a measure to reduce the type of mingling that we see on the streets of Bastille. And so we thought that if we put it in a more centralized, put them in a more centralized area, we'll have better control. I would not consider the market as a enclosed space, so to speak. It is very well ventilated. It is very much open. And so it is not considered indoors, as we know indoors to be. And so there is better control there, where we have persons who are assigned specific stalls. So we have the names, we know who are assigned there. Their names taken as persons would enter. So we have a measure there for contact tracing, and we have reduced numbers of bars there. Because of the restriction of movement, we do not have the type of crowds that we will see in Bastille on a daily basis. So there are reduced number of persons. So there's not an overcrowding, so to speak, in the market. So there's better control there at the public market, and so should something go wrong, we have a better opportunity for contact tracing as opposed to having persons haphazardly spread throughout the streets of Bastille.
Thank you so much. I thank you. Yes.
I took the personal interest in visiting the market to see how things were going there and to speak to a number of the vendors. I was very satisfied by what I saw there. There are the usual hiccups in getting started under short notice, but persons were settling in. And I am advised that a number of the vendors who previously were on the street have already signed up for their place in the market. That is a wonderful thing. In St. Kitts, Fridays and Saturdays are the principal days when significant sales take place in terms of the market. But yesterday we had quite a number of them, and I am advised by the Permanent Secretary that significant numbers of persons have already signed up. The market has adequate space. The market is a big place with hundreds of stalls available. Adequate space will be there to provide for social distancing. We are satisfied that, taking all things under consideration, the market will be the safest place. It will allow us to enforce the COVID-19 protocols to ensure anyone entering the market, including the vendors, they must, of course, go through the hand sanitizing. The names must be written, so we have records which will assist in contact tracing. If that event becomes necessary, persons entering the market must wear masks, or else no entry will be allowed to them. And once those at the Ministry of Agriculture take note of these things, all of us, those of us who go to buy, those who go to sell, will be in a better and safer place at the market. And I would want to invite all the customers of those who once sold their items in the streets of Bastille to visit them and certainly continue your patronage inside the public market. The freeing of the sidewalks makes quite a big difference to the convenience of Bastille, for the ability, particularly for our elderly, the handicapped persons, to have free passage on the sidewalks, which hitherto had been overcrowded by persons selling any number of things and really taking up space which they ought not to. So we are on the right track of getting Bastille to look as it should look, to be more inviting and more possible for those who need to go from one location to another. I am satisfied that what we have now will work very well and will really in time become a model. We want all vendors, I repeat, all vendors, to use the public market and to stay off the street. And the police would enforce this. We are being careful to provide persons with a place, with toilet facilities, a place which will be clean regularly, has a cleaner, has existing systems, and it's quite in terms airy, and like the caller who said it was enclosed, if you go in the market, you recognize that this is one airy spot. Very good, very nice in terms of the fresh breeze that flow from the sea and elsewhere. So we are into a good thing there. I just want the vendors to settle into their new home and to take care of it, keep it tidy.
We have two questions asking if a consideration can be given to hardware stores to open on select days during the week.
I want to answer that more from the policy point of view. I want persons to appreciate that the purpose of this 14-day lockdown is really for us to reset. It's really for us to ensure that our health experts can get ahead of the dangerous pandemic which we are treating with. It's really for us to the contact tracing to be able to catch up on all persons who might have been exposed and to test them and to ensure that persons who are infected are not moving about. Now, the more persons you have in any location, in Bastille, in a supermarket, the greater you could have super spreading of the disease. And the purpose, therefore, of both the curfew and the limited allowance for persons to pass and to move, rather, is really to regulate the crowding, regulate the unnecessary movement in our communities, in our cities, with the final objective to minimize, to contain the possible transmission. With that in mind, therefore, we are urging persons to stay at home. I want to remind persons that when we are in a period of difficulty and crisis, we cannot expect to do as we normally would do. When hurricanes come, we know we should stay indoors and stay indoors for as long as we are advised to stay indoors. We have a dangerous virus that is going around, and the advice is that as many persons should stay in their place of abode for at least 14 days, and that you should only leave if you are undertaking essential business. That means, for example, that you have to go to the health center in Tabernacle, in Keon, in St. Paul's, in Dieppe, in Sadlers, in Old Road, you name them, St. Peter's, Bastille, Newtown, etc., to be vaccinated. We consider that to be an important reason for you to leave your home. And we encourage you to do so because we want to have more persons vaccinated, more persons on the first dose, and more persons having their second dose on their part then to becoming fully vaccinated 14 days thereafter. If you're going to see your doctor, of course, that is an essential business. And so we would say, get to your doctor quickly, get back home before the curfew hours. At this particular moment in time, while hardware stores are important and we would want to encourage them, the advice is that those businesses will not necessarily be given certain scope that are accorded, say, to supermarkets, because the essential nature of their function could not now be appreciated or put at the same level. There may be very unique circumstances that would develop from time to time, and in that regard, the discretion of the Commissioner of Police is available, and he can exercise it as he sees it fit, having regard to public health considerations. So things that we can postpone, we should postpone them. It is not the normal time. We are in a crisis, and the more you go out and the more you mingle, you stand a higher probability, particularly if you are not fully vaccinated, to come in contact with the virus to someone else. So painting, that can be postponed. 14 days, 2 weeks. You know, your pipe has a leak. Could something else be done to deal with that particular matter in the meanwhile? You know, we are people who are very innovative and we find ways. But please, please stay at home unless you have an essential business to transact, unless you are an essential worker and you have a call from an appropriate authority to report to work. We are urging that you stay at home to protect yourself. Protect yourself. There is no need to come to town one day and then you end up with the COVID and you lose 14 days anyway. So stay at home. Stay at home and be safe. It is a difficult period, but difficult decisions have to be made in the broader public interest. And there is a general public health interest at this particular moment toward the containing of a deadly virus, the COVID-19, and all of us must be conscious of that. I also want to urge persons really not to make too many inquiries for exemption. We have to give the 14 days period, the 14-day period, a real chance of success. And then we can open up more fully, knowing that more persons are protected, and therefore there's a lower likelihood of the COVID-19 being attached or infecting anyone and their families. So all these measures which the task force, the health experts, have come up with and proposed, they are for your own good. And all we are saying, for 14 days, abide by them. 14 days. In other countries like Trinidad, I mean, for all of this year, Trinidad has been on lockdown. You can't enter the country unless you get approval from the Minister of National Security. Trinidad has been on lockdown. No one there is taking any chances or being allowed by the law to take chances. We have a situation where Trinidad is one of the significant producers of cement. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, as part of its partial lockdown, had determined that, well, cement making is not an essential service. A number of CARICOM countries, including St. Kitts and Nevis, petitioned the government to say that this is critical to our recovery efforts, and we would like you to open up really, allow an exemption. And the government response initially is the factories will stay closed. It is not in the public interest to transit. What we are prepared to do will be to allow stocks that are there to be sold, but no new production activities. And we understand that. And our people must understand this is not a normal time. What we do when hurricanes are coming, and I use that by way of analogy, we hide ourselves, we protect ourselves, we stay indoors for as long as it's convenient. In the fight against the pandemic, the incubation period of 14 days has been considered to be an appropriate time for us to be on a better course to defeat the pandemic. So I'm appealing for consideration, and I'm appealing for people to have faith in the ability to survive for 14 days. It is not food that you have to go for. It is not medicine. Please, for God's sake, stay indoors to the extent possible.
Well, having answered that question, we...
Kawirakin and some of the advice they have given. Do you want to add anything?
Well, we have questions about, I don't know if in your response anything would relate to these questions about when can persons get access to the port if they have things to clear, and the person made reference to maybe people who receive barrels from abroad. And what was the reason for not allowing money transfer services to open at a time when people might not have an income?
You want to answer that one?
Well, I think the whole intent is to reduce the number of persons who are doing business in town, who are entering in business premises. And we know that these businesses attract lines of people. And this facilitates the spread of the virus. So we do as much as we can to reduce, to limit the number of persons coming into contact with each other. And this is just one of the businesses that is affected. The commissioner, as the Prime Minister would have said, has the authority to exercise a discretion in permitting businesses to open from time to time if he sees there's a need. And he has done so today. I think one of the money transfer businesses were given approval for a short window today to be open to facilitate some persons who would have had some urgent needs. And so the commissioner has been exercising his authority, but it has to be controlled. It cannot be a case where all the businesses are open and persons are flocking in to do business. We have to limit the number of persons. We have to reduce the contact persons are making with each other. And this is one of the measures that is in place to ensure that that happens.
So would the same apply to the port?
The port?
Just for clarity, yes.
Well, the courier services, those brokerage firms, they have been allowed to operate on a reduced staff. And they cannot have customers come into their place of business. The staff, some of the staff can go to the port, go to customs to clear goods, to do the business with the ships, but not to have customers come into their business to clear goods. They can do delivery service, so they have the ability to operate on a limited basis, delivery service, clear goods with the port and from customs, but they cannot have customers come into their stores, to their premises, to transact business.
What effect, if any, has the global pandemic had on the Citizenship by Investment program?
I would say so far it's early days yet. And so we will have to evaluate that some point perhaps at the end of the month. Last year certainly we had the pandemic on us in March. It did have some impact upon inflows because the traditional way of marketing, going overseas, visiting, holding seminar, all of those had to be aborted. And indeed, persons' interests were on survival, where they were at, rather than anything else. But by the end of the year, we began to see some recovery. And we certainly, this year, are more resilient to be able to continue to do business. So we still continue to accept and process applications at the Citizenship by Investment unit. Indeed, we were unique, and maybe we still are. We were the first to have developed a 24/7 system that allow persons to file documents and to be able, as it were, to see where they're at in terms of the processing. So we continue to be facilitating, using again some of the same processes and means that were used last year during the pandemic to ensure the continuity of business. Things now can be sent online, for example, uploaded, and they are sent online, and the physical copies and documents will receive at a much later date. The processing would not be halted, and of course verification will be done. Those who need information can contact the CIU to get more particulars, but it is open to do business. And most, if not all of that business, well, certainly all of the business will be done online. There are persons then who are working from home, and a limited number of persons who may be on site to deal with any queries at this particular moment in time. But for now, we have done reasonably well since the pandemic from last year. I would say that we have recovered some ground. We are now in a new wave, and so we will see what happens as we advance in the year.
Can we consider incentives for persons to take the vaccine so that we can get to the target for having people fully vaccinated?
And we have recommended that the Ministry of Health, through its health promotion and other agencies, come up with another number of ideas indeed to help drive the vaccination program. This is very critical at this particular moment in time. We have had some ideas of what would have taken place in other islands, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel fully, but we have to know what will work. We have seen a number of artists, Sincere, and other people who have been engaged by the ministry, and they have done their part in terms of promoting the program. Tonight, for example, during the break, we'd have seen some of these artists at work, and perhaps more will be coming on in the weeks and months to come. But we have the CMO here, and she would be more intimately knowledgeable about where those broader incentives are.
All right, so at present we've shifted our focus in terms of focusing on containing the wave, the present wave or the current wave of infections, but we are open to recommendations in terms of what persons think are reasonable in terms of incentives for vaccination. I want to use the opportunity, though, to thank one of the callers who provided us some good recommendations in terms of a vaccination drive in the form of a whistle stop. We actually had that planned, and then that was going to come into for around about when we picked up that first case on May 19th, and so that's on hold. The reason for that, the reason why we didn't carry through what we had planned, was that we thought that a vaccination drive of that nature, meaning a whistle stop going through the island, would encourage crowds or people coming together, and we didn't want that at the time when we are experiencing a surge in cases, and so that method of bringing persons on board is placed on hold. So what we do is we continue going to persons where they are at. Prior to the lockdown, that is, where we went to various workplaces, the hotels, business entities, and vaccinated on the ground at those workplace sites.
We have a question asking for an update. What progress, rather, are we making in sourcing more vaccines?
Okay, so that's a very good question. The government and the Ministry of Health, we continue our efforts in terms of sourcing vaccines. What we need to recognize is that the demand for vaccines far outstrips the supply, so vaccines are scarce. For now, we are exploring the African Medical Supplies Platform, meaning sourcing vaccines from the African Union through that platform, and then I'm sure persons would have seen in the press the President of the United States offering vaccines through the COVAX facility, and I think directly through to CARICOM, and so we are hopeful that we will get an allotment of doses through CARICOM. But we do not have a specific date as yet with respect to the next batch.
That the COVAX facility, from which we received 21,600 doses, the payments that we would have made initially would anticipate a further 21,600 doses becoming available to us. Those have already been paid for, so they are due to us. The problem is one which the CMO spoke to. There's a global scarcity of the vaccine that had become even more pronounced because of the unfortunate surge in the COVID infections in India. And the Indian government for a while had indicated that it would suspend the export of vaccines, at least for the rest of the year. India has been one of the major producers of the vaccine, so you see where that would put us. And that is why we had say, and we continue to say to people in St. Kitts and Nevis, we are fortunate to have some. Come and get it while it is there. There are countries in the world yet who have not yet been able to start a proper vaccine rollout. So the COVAX facility, we have 21,600 doses to there. The African Medical Supplies Platform, we have already made down payments there. We have PAHO undertaking decisions or in discussions are ongoing regarding some about 25,000 doses. And we are expecting through the Biden initiative to receive some. I should say we also have ongoing bilaterals with other countries and other benefactors who are interested in providing us vaccines. The problem is, around the world, there is not enough vaccines to meet the demands. And it's only a small percentage of the world population of just over, 7 billion have had access to the vaccines. The other day or recently this week, we learned that the G7 in their meeting indicated that they was going to put a significant sum, can't remember the total, to provide more vaccines to poorer and more vulnerable countries. That is a welcome initiative, but more needs to be done. And our people have to appreciate that the vaccine is scarce, and they must not, as it were, be careless in not taking it while we have it. For once it is no longer there, it is no longer there. But an opportunity has been provided for everyone. Since we start the launch of this in February, so you had 1 week in February, March, April, May, to come forward and to take the vaccine for your own protection. It would be a tragedy if persons do not take what is there, and then when it is finished, they begin to complain. You don't have time in your hands, and so I would invite persons again who have not already done so to turn out tomorrow and get themselves vaccinated while we still have some. We, as I said, have done all we possibly can, both through international and other arrangements that are in place, one of which, the COVAX, has borne fruit. The bilateral initiative with India produced 20,000 doses. So we have had success, and we have been able to move ahead and more rapidly than many countries. That is why, as we stand on a per capita basis, we have one of the best rollout of vaccinations in the Caribbean region. We certainly have a larger percentage of our population vaccinated than almost every other independent country within the CARICOM and certainly within the OECS. So we have done a wonderful job notwithstanding. Of course, there's a fierce urgency of now, and we would like by tomorrow everyone who is outstanding could move forward and get their first dose and complete their second shot. But again, it's an individual choice to do the right thing, and it is sometimes harder to do the right thing. And so we are having faith in our people that they understand the seriousness of the times. They see the trauma that has been created to families. They see the dislocation and the instability created when businesses have to be closed because somewhere someone did not do what they ought to have done. So we all can get more quickly to the finish line if more persons were to move forward and we ignore the fake news. And some of those who are discouraging you, they have gone secretly taking their vaccines. They're not telling you. They think that they are outsmarting you, so you better get smart yourself and do the right thing.
We have a question, sir, asking, what is the situation why there is no similar lockdown in Nevis?
Well, we would have preferred that the state as a whole followed a similar policy. The Nevis Island administration had indicated that having regard to the COVID situation then, that they had not had any case for a relatively long period of time, and it would have been very difficult for them to pursue a lockdown of the type in St. Kitts and Nevis. And that discussion continues. In that regard, we have done a particular carve-out for Nevis and the request of the Nevis Island administration. Nevis has now had its first case. And so the reality that COVID is always there, that is hovering around, only a matter of time, is something that more and more we will appreciate. And so as time goes, we will see what realignment can be done. But that had been the principal premise at the moment advanced. I should say also that the administration does have by the Constitution some autonomy over certain areas, education, not at the broad policy level, but in terms of the day-to-day operation. Health is one of those. In the realm of security, that power resides at the federal level and in the hands of the Prime Minister, and the Constitution is clear. how that operates. So we are dealing with some of the nuances, unique provisions in the Constitution to find a livable position that in the end still protects everyone in Nevis and everyone in St. Kitts. It's a battle which we must fight together, and we continue to work on these. We learn as we go along. We hope that as a result of the learning and the experiences, we are able to make better decisions for the people going forward. It is not a perfect arrangement, but it is one nonetheless that allows the Federation to coexist and for us to still keep the people safe. I should say that on Monday we discussed this at length. There is a commitment to the arrangements, there is a commitment to keep the people safe, and again, there's an appreciation of certain uniqueness, and those uniqueness are being treated with.
We have someone who asked if people can still catch the virus, even if they have their 2 doses, and they wanted to know if any of the positive cases we have right now have had their 2 doses.
Okay, so that's a very good question, Jackie. When you've accepted the vaccine and you have 2 doses on board and you are deemed fully vaccinated, meaning 2 weeks elapsed between the last dose and exposure, there is a small risk of your becoming infected, what you call a breakthrough infection. And so what the vaccine does, it provides you an 83% risk reduction in your ability to contract the disease. And so there's still a small risk. And so yes, it's possible. Once you're fully vaccinated, there's a small chance that you can still pick up the virus. However, based on the science and the literature, in such instances, the individual is usually asymptomatic, because the manufacturers have reassured us that the vaccine provides you protection against moderate and severe disease, and it protects you against death from the virus. So there's a small chance, a small possibility. Now, in terms of the active cases, the 180 active cases, we have a team at present gleaning the data in terms of the vaccination status of these 180 active cases. And so in another day or 2, we'll be able to share that information in terms of the vaccination status of the recent cases.
Someone wants to know, why is it that we still have to go through a lockdown if we've actually gotten so far with the vaccination campaign?
Okay, so I want to begin by commending those individuals who would have come on board in terms of accepting the first dose. So 66.3% of the target population have come on board in terms of the first dose. And I also want to commend the 31% of persons who are now fully vaccinated. However, ladies and gentlemen, vaccine hesitancy is real, and it's a significant problem here in our Federation. And so at present, almost 33% of the target population have not yet come on board in terms of accepting the vaccine. And so what you find is that the unvaccinated is still vulnerable. And so the virus has been reintroduced into our population, and because of this, it has taken root, it is spreading. And we are seeing a rise in the number of newly diagnosed cases. We are seeing a gradual rise in the positivity rate. And because of that, we had to pull out and employ this public health measure of a partial lockdown or restrictions, strict restriction of movement. And the aim here is to break the chains of transmission of the virus and reduce the numbers. And so it's an effort to save lives and livelihood. And so we really don't want individuals to see it as a punishment, because I think that's what the caller referred to it as. It's just a means whereby we want you to stay put, shelter in place, because the virus moves through or via persons moving. And so if you pause, shelter in place, we can break the chains of transmission and we can go back to life as we know it. So it's not punishment, it's just a means, a measure through which we can save lives and ultimately livelihoods.
We have a question asking, I think Superintendent Henry can answer this one, saying that buses are still operating without following the regulations, and they want to know what can be done about that. And also the person has said that they observed people doing construction work, and they want to know if that is allowed.
Well, as mentioned earlier, all employment, all businesses where the employees cannot work using virtual means shall cease operation. I do not think you could do construction remotely, and so those construction businesses should be closed. Of course, if you are involved in doing emergency repairs, small repairs, those would be permitted, of course. But the large construction sites where you have large number of employees working on those sites, those have to be brought to a halt until we get over this particular phase. Now, in terms of the buses, it was just last weekend, 2 bus operators were arrested for carrying more passengers than they were permitted to carry. So that is the extent of the consequence. You can be arrested, and the fine, if you are convicted in court, is up to $5,000. The magistrate can fine you up to $5,000 or 6 months imprisonment or both. So we have 2 persons that have been arrested. So far, what we have been doing is asking the extra passengers to come out of the vehicle. And that puts the passengers at some inconvenience, because you now have to wait on the side of the road until another bus that has space comes along, and that might be difficult. So we really ask the bus operators to take your passengers' safety and comfort into consideration when you are deciding to overload your bus. If the police stops you, the passenger would have to come out, the passenger will be inconvenienced. The police could take you to court, they can arrest you, and you face fines up to $5,000.
We have someone who asked if the numbers announced this evening and that have been announced are positive cases that have come as a result of contact tracing or persons presenting themselves at the hospital.
So I addressed that in my opening remarks, and so most of the newly or the recent cases have been identified through the robust contact tracing process. We only had a few to date, persons walking into the emergency room, but it's important to note that even those who have come and walked in at the ER, we are still able to link them to previously identified cases.
And finally, with these last 2 questions from callers, someone is suggesting that people get bands, that's persons who are placed in isolation, get bands that can alert you as to when they leave the place that they've been put into isolation. They think that's the problem. I don't know if you want to comment on that. And we also have someone who asks, how will you know who took the vaccine and who didn't take the vaccine when in a public space?
Well, okay, I'll start with that one. So I think she mentioned in the supermarket. So you really can't tell when you go into one of our local supermarkets. You really can't tell who is vaccinated from who isn't. So what's important is adherence to the COVID prevention and control measures, making sure you wear your face mask. It's properly, placed over your nose and mouth while in that space. Make sure you sanitize your hands upon entrance to the supermarket. And I also sanitize my hands upon leaving the supermarket and making sure you maintain that safe distance of 6 feet or more from others as you walk down the aisles and as you wait at the cashier. So these are the measures that you are going to have to adhere to prevent exposure to the virus in public places. But we're not walking around with a sign saying I'm vaccinated, I'm not. But it's the public health measures that we will have to depend on when in a public space.
Thank you so much for all of those responses. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll resume taking your questions and concerns, and tonight we definitely will try to see how many messages we can get through. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I know we can make it. It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be one kind, one people. We are roll up to roll out, cause no man's alone. Do what's right, cause I love you. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to let it roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
St. Kitts and Nevis, let's roll up to roll out. It's our best shot.
My name is Jacqueline Bryan. I'm your host this evening, and this program is brought to you by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. This evening, he's joined by the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws, as well as Superintendent Cromwell Henry from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. And we are speaking about working together to contain the spread of the COVID-19 virus. We are going to focus mainly on the WhatsApp messages we've received in this latter part of the program as we bring the program to a close. However, there are two issues that came up with the callers that we did not get to address, and we're going to address those now. We have the issue or the suggestion about the ankle bracelets for persons who have been placed in isolation. Superintendent Henry will address that, as well as some allegations that there's an underreporting of cases when there might actually be hundreds. So there's an underreporting of cases by the Ministry of Health. That is the allegation that was put forward, and the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Laws, will address that. Superintendent Henry, would you like to go first?
Yes, that caller mentioned about the bracelet. That is possible. In fact, the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Act makes reference to monitoring persons using electronic bracelets. And so we, in our meeting today, we discussed that very issue, and we are now in the process of looking for suitable devices that utilize geofencing technology so that we could be able to monitor persons who are in quarantine to track their movements should they leave their quarantine. So that is being explored, and we hope that that would come on stream shortly.
Dr. Laws?
Okay, so I want to utilize this opportunity to clear the air. As at end of workday today, a total of 244 confirmed cases have been reported by the Federation. 64 of these cases have fully recovered, and so at present we have 180 active cases. We've added over the last 4 weeks, between May 19th and present, we've only added 199 cases. 198 added in St. Kitts, 1 added in Nevis. I want to reassure the public that care and diligence is given to the verification of these numbers before we disseminate this information. And so these are the accurate figures. Thank you.
Now we'll go to the WhatsApp questions, and we're going to try our best to take as many as possible given the time frame within which we have to take them. And we have a question asking if, do you think that the actions of the Premier of Nevis contributed to the case that was found in Nevis? So I don't know if you can speak to how that case was identified and found.
Okay, no. This case is really a contact of a case that was previously identified in St. Kitts. St. Kitts and Nevis is interlinked, travel to and fro, and so the case went over to Nevis. Yeah, so it's the case in Nevis is a contact of a previously identified case in St. Kitts.
If the vaccine has a 95% efficacy, the person wants to know why there's a concern about those who are not vaccinated if the vaccinated are already protected and share a workspace. So they're saying, if I am not vaccinated, what danger am I to people who are fully vaccinated? And there's no reason or fact that the vaccine is really effective if the vaccinated still has to be quarantined, wear a face mask, and socially distance themselves. Would you like to address that?
Okay, so the vaccine has an efficacy of about 83%, and so the unvaccinated is vulnerable and provides a risk to everyone, all right? Because then the virus can take hold, and it's not only going to affect the unvaccinated, but it can affect the vaccinated, because the vaccinated can be, there's a reduced risk of picking up the infection, but it is still possible, and then that individual, even though they may be asymptomatic, not becoming ill themselves, they can pass it on to other unvaccinated individuals. And so the unvaccinated in our population are vulnerable. And so that's why we are using every opportunity to ask and implore persons to come on board and accept the vaccine.
We have someone who wants an update on vaccination cards. When will those be ready?
They are ready. The DCHS, Dr. Keisha Liddy, she just advised me that all the vaccine cards are signed and that you can access your cards at the relevant health centers.
Okay, you already addressed how many of the active cases have been vaccinated, and you said you will present that data at a later stage once you've done your analysis. But this person is eager to know what will be the benefits of vaccinated citizens and residents once we get to the goal for herd immunity.
Okay. Reduce quarantine time. We are already noting that, and so inbound passengers coming in, once you're fully vaccinated, you will qualify for a reduction in your quarantine of 9 days versus 14 days, and hopefully once we get over, or as soon as we get through this outbreak, we can consider a further reduction in quarantine time for persons who are fully vaccinated. But let me also share, as we continue our robust contact tracing process, a number of the contacts we've identified are fully vaccinated. And so those individuals, they are not asked to self-quarantine. However, they are asked to be tested. So we test them at around 7 days post-exposure. But they can move around and continue, doing what they normally do without being asked to self-quarantine. So already there are some benefits to being vaccinated.
Doesn't necessarily have a question, but they have a comment, and they say, "Good night, Mr. Prime Minister. God bless you. I can walk on the sidewalk free and fair. Those vendors look so nice in the market. Keep up the good works." This person.
observation. The streets look much better.
This person says, blessed night to Cromwell Henry. I want to know what the position at the ferry terminal is. Some bars can open and some cannot. A police at the Bastia police station said if your bar is at the terminal, you cannot open. So what is it really?
Well, the regulations make provisions for bars to operate for takeout service only. And if persons congregate within that bar space and they persist even after being advised not to do so by the police, then the police has the discretion to close the bar to prevent that type of congregation. Congregating at bars is strictly prohibited. You could only pick up whatever you're buying and leave. And if there's any congregation, the police has a duty to prevent it. And so closing the bar is one of the options if persons persist after being warned.
So all bars should be closed at this stage?
No. If persons do not comply with the conduct that is expected, social distancing, if you have to be waiting for service, and if you are waiting in the bar, liming, as we would say, then that is prohibited, and the bar will be ordered to be closed in those circumstances.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. This person writes, good evening. I hope everyone is well and keeping safe. Thank you for disseminating the important information and updates on the country's COVID-19 situation. What government ministries or government department offices are approved as essential? And I think that question can tie into this one, where the person is saying, I understand that the Cabinet Secretary is ordering some government offices and ministries back to work and work on shift. However, with the rising number of COVID-19 cases, is this wise? The Prime Minister and Superintendent Henry has advised that persons should work from home where possible. So what government ministries and or government department offices are approved as essential? And I understand the Cabinet Secretary is ordering some government offices and ministries back to work and work on shift. Is this wise with the rising number of COVID-19 cases?
The specifics to which the caller or the person WhatsApping is referring to. The government is an essential service, but clearly no country can be run without a government. Whether it is, and in any emergency, any pandemic, government has to continue, and the lines have to be there, or else we are going to get chaos. Indeed, in times of emergency, the government is the most stable and must be the most stable entity to be able to act. And not just pandemic, hurricane, anything. It's the government that keeps the state functional. In that regard, therefore, as an essential service, it has to have its personnel. We say those who can work at home should be allowed that opportunity. That, of course, has to be derived at by consultation with the department heads and the relevant officers to determine who is needed and who is not needed. The Cabinet Secretary, in all the provisions we have used since last year, has the power to determine, and she would do this in consultation with the permanent secretaries, what kind of support service a department may need to provide at least the minimum service required by people. And there are some services and the things Superintendent Henry mentioned can't be done virtually, but they are critical. So for example, for the elderly lady who has to come down and go to the bank, which is a private sector entity, to get her money, there would have to be a cashier. of course, appropriate safeguards, etc., would be in place to accommodate that. What we need to ensure is that where work is taking place, at any workplace, the appropriate protocols are being adhered to. The hand sanitizing, the wearing of masks in the correct way, the frequent hand hygiene, the spacing, and all these. In fact, the circular that I saw went out indicated that the 6 feet distance must be maintained. And that is one of the reasons where for critical services that have to be sustained, and recall this is not new, even in hurricanes, there are functionaries of the government who must be at work. In the context of hurricanes, at the NEMA Center, people have to be there physically because they have to be able to respond. So those provisions, the shift system allows for better spacing, and that is one of the reasons why some may come in the mornings for a particular period, some may take over at a certain period of the day. The shift system clearly reduces the number of persons participating in a workspace and is a useful instrument. So there is no prejudice in its application. We don't want to have too many people. Remember, the preference is that you stay at home unless you are required to perform an essential service. And I've established that the government service is an essential one. And so it has to be manned appropriately. What can be done online is being done. For example, payments, some payments for the Inland Revenue Department, those can be done online. And those are being facilitated. Other things, they need a person physically. And again, under the shift system, some of these services are being provided because the government has to function as an entity to avoid chaos. Clearly, some other departments, you will have little or no persons. We have just moved, for example, persons into the public market. So normally, if we were on a limited lockdown, that would have been closed. In the context of what we are doing, allowing people an opportunity to still continue to earn, we have determined that staff support has to be there to monitor the entry and exit of persons and the adherence to the protocols. But these are just some unique circumstances. And again, to be reminded, only for 14 weeks if we do it well. Only for 14 days, sorry. 14 days. 14 days will go very quickly if we are disciplined. And I want to say from my observation, driving through town yesterday, I felt a sense of satisfaction with the people of St. Kitts, how they had conducted themselves. The streets were not overcrowded. The vendors had all gone. And we hear from some of the people what a wonderful change that has made for them being able to do what they really regularly should be able to. Walk the streets of Bastille, not having to go in the streets and risk their lives to oncoming traffic. So we are doing good so far, and I would want to encourage that. I want, on that note, really to commend the police officers. I think they are out there doing a good job in enforcing the curfew and in doing the monitoring. And I am sure there are areas they may want to tweak and improve upon to give greater assurance. But generally, from all I've seen, compared to last year, this one has been almost near perfect in many respects. So thanks again to the responsible people of St. Kitts and Nevis for understanding that it's a hard decision, but it is in their best interest.
This person writes, Good evening, Dr. Laws. I received my first dose of the vaccine 8 weeks ago, and after listening to you that persons can return and get their second shot after 4 weeks, I have done so on 3 separate occasions. Every time I visited the health center, they tell me that I will have to wait until the full time of 10 weeks. Are the nurses at the health centers aware that persons can receive their second shots after 4 weeks?
Okay, I want to begin by apologizing to the individual and for highlighting this gap, because this has been communicated to the coordinator of community nursing services and the deputy coordinator, and by extension the relevant nurse managers. However, we need to we will look into this and plug this gap at the soonest.
Well, this is a question about bus operators. The police are on the road doing their best to protect our people, but the busmen lack respect for the police, and they said that the behavior of these busmen when they are stopped by officers, especially from the Old Road police station, is very awful. They are breaking the COVID rules, and I think Superintendent Henry had already spoke to what can be done when these buses pick up more than the number they are allowed to pick up during this time. When you gave examples of two bus operators who had been arrested, so the police can, acting on the current regulations, arrest persons when these offenses are committed. And I think that passengers are also allowed to report, or onlookers are allowed to report these cases when they become aware that they are breaking the law. This person said, I took my second shot 4 weeks. Now I have not worked. How could that be healthy for me when the government is enjoying a salary? And they didn't make much of an explanation, but they're saying they can't work and they've received their second dose of the vaccine. Would you like to say anything to them, Mr. Prime Minister?
Again, we are trying to protect people. We have said that this strategy is a life-first strategy. If you have no life, there is no livelihood to defend. And therefore, you have to keep yourself healthy, because every employer needs healthy persons for them to be effective on the job. And you see, you will be stopped one way or the other. Let's be very frank. Either the COVID would infect you, and then you have to be quarantined for 14 days or whatever the time period, and you're in the same dilemma of which you are now complaining. Again, we have to recognize what it is. It is a difficult time. And of course, our hearts are with you. And certainly, as we examine and review, we will see what can be done. But in the meantime, we are certain that if you have the right mindset and whatever resources that can be made available to you in the circumstances, certainly those are being considered. But I want people not to get too caught up in what was, rather to look at what is and what must be. And it must be for the next 14 days. We did this already, you know. We did this last year, and it was in many cases more severe than it is now. And with God's grace, we all survive. And this is a survival game. It's either you will try to be ahead of the game, or you will get caught up in the pandemic in a way that would be unhelpful to you and your family. So we regret that some persons will lose some income as a result of the policy measures. But are they necessary? Yes, they are very necessary, and they are in your best interest. It is the delicate balancing act between life and livelihood, and our preference is to save life first. So whatever we can do, we will do to assist. There are several entities of the state. We have over 20 social assistance programs or safety net programs. You can make application to the PAP in the circumstances if you do qualify. You can go to the Social Services Department, and they have a range of support services that are available. And I will invite the caller and others in similar circumstances to approach the relevant entity when time avails itself to see what can be done to lessen their load. And we do regret the hardships that have come, but it is a necessary, challenging period we must endure. And we are resilient people, and we will endure, because the tomorrow must be brighter than the today.
Right. Why is it that the EMTs, and I believe that means emergency medical technicians, don't get any recognition during this pandemic when they are really the frontline workers who have to be the first persons who come into contact with the persons who are positive or suspected instead of the nurses and doctors?
We have, but I want to utilize this opportunity tonight to commend the emergency medical technicians for their valuable service, because, you know, as it's rightly stated, they are on the front line. They are the first ones on the spot when someone calls 911 and the ambulance is dispatched. They are the first line of contact between the health system and that individual. And so I want to commend them for their contribution even in this response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
This person asks, I got tested at the JNF last Saturday. I haven't heard back from anyone as yet. What is the time frame for someone to receive the results?
Okay, so I want to assure this individual that their result is negative, and within short order they would get their result. It would be nice if they could just forward a name, and so I could assure them that by tomorrow morning they would get their result. But for sure it's negative.
With the exception of the number of cases in Nevis, is there any other information pertaining to Nevis in any of the reports presented? For example, is mobile testing being done in Nevis?
Well, yes. In Nevis, there is a public health team that, you know, goes to the various hotels and quarantine sites to take the nasopharyngeal samples, etc. And so, yes, there is a similar unit or facility in Nevis, as is in St. Kitts.
So, Rice, I think you should have a bubble for CPL cricket. Also, I think you need to have an allergist doctor working with Dr. Byron Nisbet, Dr. Laws, and Dr. Wilkinson. I would like to know why persons who cannot take the COVID-19 vaccines through no fault of their own, from being allergic to the PEG vaccines, and persons with medical conditions, why are they excluded from hospitality, entertainment, community settings, and travel, and unable to work due to an occupational requirement? Why don't you have a stand, one for vaccinated, and a stand for unvaccinated people at Warner Park?
Well, I just want to say that there aren't many contraindications to the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. There are a number of persons who have allergic reactions who can take the vaccine, but this seems to be saying something specific. It says allergic to the PEG in the vaccine. Well, if you are allergic to the vaccine, it means that you will be unvaccinated for now, and then that makes you vulnerable. And so if you are vulnerable, by extension, you really shouldn't be attending mass gatherings in the settings as highlighted here.
We have two more WhatsApp messages that we're going to take. Someone wanted to make a clarification, saying that someone called in saying that Canada would take a whole year of lockdown, but that's not true, because Canada just started opening up last week, and they wanted to highlight that. And this person asking, when will the Department of Labor open so that the people who were called last week to go to the office for their severance payments can receive those?
Well, I could ask the Labor Department to respond to that and to put public notice out. Again, a notice, a desire of persons to come out, and that, of course, can lead to issues. The preference is for people to stay at home. If persons are to receive payments from the Labor Department, the preference at this time should be that these payments be made to bank accounts to the extent that the persons have. I want to encourage persons to the extent necessary and to the extent they can to remain at their residence for the next of what remains of the 14-day period of lockdown. It is for your protection and the protection of others. Minimize the occasions on which you are going to get yourself involved in mingling with persons, especially those unknown. In the context of the community spread, it is advisable that as many persons opt to stay at home to the extent that this is permissible. So again, I would want to encourage persons coming out, especially if it is to go to a location to receive money. That, of course, is an obvious vulnerability. And monies, of course, can go through the bank. You give them your account, you authorize the department to make payments to those accounts, and I'm sure those will be facilitated. But I'll ask the Labor Department, since she indicated there may be some difficulties there, to provide some more information on that matter.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. And that actually brings us to the end of the program. We've taken as many questions and concerns as we have. There should be a briefing this week, if I'm not mistaken, and hopefully you'll get an opportunity to get some more information in that forum. And at this stage, we're going to have the panelists give their closing remarks in the reverse order of which they started, which means Superintendent Cromwell Henry, that we begin with you.
Well, thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Prime Minister, for having me here on this program. I think it was a wonderful opportunity for me to express to the public some of the things that the police are doing and to seek the cooperation of the public with regards to the protocols that have been outlined or published in the various regulations. We continue to experience the spread of the virus in the community. In addition to the public health measures, there are some legal measures that have been, well, some of these public health measures have been translated into regulations, and therefore the compliance of the public. The police, of course, is charged with the responsibility for enforcing these regulations, and so we solicit your cooperation. We do not take any joy in penalizing persons, meting out tickets or taking persons to court or arresting. That is the last thing that we want to do. And so that is why we are here on this program, to educate you. What are the expectations, what you are required to do. And we hope through this program we will see better compliance, and so slow the spread or prevent the spread of the disease, and so that we could get back to normal in the shortest possible time. So I want to bid you all good night, and let us all be safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was Superintendent Cromwell Henry from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Laws.
All right, so thank you, Jackie. I wanted to just underscore that the SARS-CoV-2 virus, or the COVID-19 virus, is here, and it is spreading, and we need to do all we can to protect ourselves from this virus. And the measures are quite simple: wearing the face mask at all times when in a public space, making sure your hands are adequately sanitized at all times, maintaining that safe distance of 6 feet or more between yourselves and others, avoid crowds. And most importantly, if you are not yet vaccinated, empower yourself with the latest information regarding the vaccine, and we want you to come on board and accept, because the unvaccinated are vulnerable. And so I just want us to work together to maintain and protect the health of the people of the Federation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Laws. That was the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws. And finally, we'll hear from the person responsible for bringing you this weekly program, Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris.
Thank you again, Jackie, for being a wonderful moderator and so smoothly enabling us to communicate with our country, our people, and to hear from them matters of concern. I think that we covered quite a bit of a ground and that our people are better informed as a result of our hosting this program with the regularity in which we have done so. I do this as regularly as I can because I accept that part of my charge as the Prime Minister of this country is to do the best that I can for the people, our citizens and residents here. And this program provides me with an opportunity to get feedback and to put myself in a better position to advance them to the stronger and safer future. I want to thank all of the callers because without your calls, without your commentaries, we would not be at a better place. Democracy is alive and well in St. Kitts and Nevis, and we would want to have it this way. And while we encourage all to speak, we encourage all to speak truth. It was interesting that a number of callers tonight drew attention to the falsehood and the propaganda being, as it were, meted out each day by the Labour Party as part of a calculated effort to undermine the successful vaccination program. In my mind, this is a pity. It's a sad plight for a party that had for many years dominated the seat of government and had an opportunity to govern well, lost trust with the people, and instead of redeeming itself with an enlightened approach to the body politics, it has engaged in some of the worst kinds of political scaremongering and scandalizing of people that we have seen in the country, attacking the professionals at the task force, attempting to undermine their credibility with their falsehood. And all right-thinking people must condemn the Labour Party and all the surrogates of that party who are doing a dangerous and unpatriotic job. At this critical time when the country needs to come together, I promise them that in 4 years' time they will have a lot of opportunity to engage in political tug-of-war if that is their wish. For now, I want and we want to have a unified country doing the right thing to keep people safe. So the sort of vagabondry that is being displayed, I want to condemn it and ask that they cease and desist from that kind of activity. It is regrettable because in the opposition elements or among them are medical doctors. How could they, with clear conscience, engage in the kind of disorderly and unpatriotic behavior over a pandemic? Enough said about them and their ways. I want to commend the panelists, Superintendent Cromwell Henry, for the excellent job he has been doing as a police officer, as one of the critical members in the task force in disseminating information. From my vantage point, I think you have been an excellent presenter of information to the public. You have served the image of the police force very well, and I hope that you will continue and that you are getting some fulfillment from your role. And, you know, you're one of the national stars, so we look forward to hearing good things from you and about you, and I'm sure Jackie Bryan will do a good job in promoting those as success stories of the police force. I want again to thank our Chief Medical Officer for being an excellent example of what a good public officer should do and can be. I want to thank her for going beyond the call of duty each time and every occasion. Working through this pandemic has been very tough, very difficult. There have been unexpected hiccups along the way, and nonetheless she has maintained her composure, her professionalism, her integrity, and her interest in getting this right, has been so deep and enduring. I myself has been inspired to work even harder. When you see people doing so much in the cause of the nation, and they never murmur, they never ask for one thing back. As a leader, you yourself become inspired to do even greater service. I want to finally thank the people of my beloved country for giving me the opportunity to serve at a difficult time when there are many challenges. And I am reminded that he who has brought me so far will not abandon me. Persons ask, how do you remain so cool? I'm reminded of a passage of the scripture that says, be anxious for nothing. And so, even when I'm tempted to be anxious, and maybe I do become, I reconcile myself in the knowledge that the Lord is with us through the ages, and I take comfort in the prayers of the warriors and all the kind words that we get from Malice and others who are there on the ground, who understand the burden that the leader must carry for his country at this time, the personal sacrifice that the leader must endure to take his country to the safer place. Working together, I am comforted that in due course we shall all enjoy that safer and stronger future. God bless my country and my people. Thank you again, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister, and I want to thank all those of you who participated in this evening's program, who made a contribution, whether you had a question to ask or you had a suggestion to make. Both are equally important. So thank you so much. And for everyone who tunes in every time this program is aired, we want to wish you a very good night. I hope you found the program educational and informative. My name is Jacqueline Bryan. I was your host. And until next time, take care.